Or good afternoon. This is Helen Alton. I am the director at the Haines Sheldon Museum, and I would like to welcome you to our 20th History Tidbit since the coronavirus began. With our majestic peaks and pristine waters and rich cultural heritage, the Chilkat Valley has been a popular tourist destination for over 150 years. Today, we're going to jump back in time and take a look at what makes our region so appealing to visitors with History Tidbit number 20, Early Tourism in Haines. To get a sense of early tourism, we must jump back to 1867 and the Treaty of Cession, when Russia sold its claim over Alaska to the United States. Prior to this time, there had been little foreign presence in the Chilkat Valley due to the strength and might of the local Tlingit peoples, the Chilkat Kwan and the Chilkoot Kwan, the Chilkat and Chilkoot people. A century of Russian economic, religious, and military influence had familiarized the Tlingits with European ways and opened up moderate trade with Spanish, French, and British sailing ships, but no outsiders were allowed into the Chilkat Valley. After the transfer in 1867, local Tlingit and Americans interacted through trade, then through diplomacy, and finally through intellectual and cultural exchange. A rapid succession of powerful encounters between these two cultures started in 1867 to the 1880s, resulted in major changes in the region, ultimately paving the way for outside visitors and tourism. The first tourist to the Chilkat Valley was none other than U.S. Secretary of State William H. Seward. Seward had pushed America's purchase of Alaska in 1867. In 1869, Seward accompanied surveyor George Davidson on a voyage to the native village of Klukwan, which was 22 miles north of Haines, to observe a total eclipse of the sun. This is a contemporary image depicting that eclipse by local carver Jim Heaton. Davidson and Seward were hosted by Klukwan leader Chief Koklux. After the eclipse, Davidson drew a diagram that described how it occurred. In exchange, Koklux and his wives sketched a map of the trail the Chilkats used to reach the interior. You can learn more about Koklux and the Koklux map in our educational resources, and it might be something we do a future history tidbit on. Koklux saw value in cultural exchange and education. Together with the chiefs of the other 4 villages in the area, he contacted Dr. Sheldon Jackson in Sitka, requesting a mission be established in each village for the education of the Tlingit children. So this is a picture of Chief Danawak, who was one of the leaders with Koklux. Young was accompanied, so in 1879, Presbyterian missionary S. Hall Young was sent by Jackson to discuss the location of a mission with the Chilkat and Chilkoot chiefs. And basically, there were 5 villages they wanted 5 schools, but the Presbyterians said that they could only afford to create 1 school. Young, when he arrived, was accompanied by our second tourist, John Muir. Muir joined on to the trip to study glaciers and the natural environment. After 3 days of feasting in Yendastaki, near our modern-day airport, Muir, Young, Chief Koklux, and Chief Danawak, pictured here, and Shaman Skundu walked to Deshu, end of the trail, and decided that would be the site of the new mission. This is a print by local artist Pete Andreessen commemorating that historic meeting in Yendastaki. And so this is the canoe bringing Muir and S. Hall Young, and there were 3 of the Tlingits from Wrangell that came with them. After Muir's visit to the region, he wrote Alaska's Gold Fields and other stories in widely read newspapers. He said that the previously hostile Chilkats were now prepared to guide miners to the mother lode. In fact, a few weeks after Muir's visit, Koklux personally guided a few groups to the summit of Chilkat Pass, a 5-day round trip by pack and paddle. And some of this was not just Muir, but it was also, there was some pretty heavy-handed work by the American military, the folks that were in charge of this region, to force the Tlingits to open up their trails. So Koklux, who was once a guardian of a secret trail network, had now begun to shine a light on his people's pathway to wealth. After this point, with our second tourist, change came quickly to the region, and the first American institutions quickly set root. In early 1880, Ku Klux promised peaceful passage for miners entering traditional Chilkat territory. George Dickinson opened a trading post next to the mission site. The U.S. Navy built a school nearby, and George's wife Sarah became the first teacher. Soon after that American settlement, the Upper Lynn Canal became a destination for tourists. As early as the 1880s, people came to view the wild landscape and see the Davidson Glacier. As Deschutes was the Presbyterian mission at the time, and the town site of Haines had yet to be established, tourists and other traffic anchored at the much busier port of Pyramid Harbor. So over here is where the town site of Haines is a little further over in here. But this is now where everybody's coming, is Pyramid Harbor. This is before the 1900s. Pyramid Harbor lies across the Chilkat Inlet, and right now it is no longer. It is deserted. It is just the remnants of the buildings. It was also Pyramid Harbor was also the starting point of the Dalton Trail, and gold prospectors would head out from there to the Klondike for the gold rush. Unlike our modern ships and ferries, these early ships announced their arrival not with 3 blasts of the horn, but with cannon shot, which, quote, gave a tremendous echo from mountain to mountain and glacier to glacier, and thundered and rolled down the inlet for countless seconds as the anchor dropped, according to Eliza Skidmore from an account in 1883. Eliza Skidmore was Alaska's first travel writer. She was a highly independent woman ahead of her time and visited Alaska on the steamship Idaho in 1883. Her written account of the journey is considered the first true Alaska travel guide and opened Alaska to tourism. And she wrote, "Lynn Canal slumbered as a sapphire sea between its high mountain walls with scarcely a ripple on its surface. The blue expanse was streaked with the greenish gray where the turbid streams poured in from the melting glaciers, and was marked with a distinct line where the azure water changed to green, and then it faded away into gray again, where the fresh waters of the Chilkat River flowed in." This is Chapter 8, The Chilkat Country, in Eliza Skidmore's Journeys in Alaska, and this is a copy of the book. With her rather flowery language, Skidmore evokes the romanticism of Alaska and, quote, the Alaska adventure, unquote, which continues to be a driving force of tourism today. You can find links to Eliza's biography as well as a digital copy of Journeys to Alaska in our educational resources. At Pyramid Harbor, tourists overlooked the salmon cannery and Northwest Trading Company store in a determined rush to purchase items from local natives. The local Tlinkits adapted their considerable carving and weaving skills into souvenirs such as miniature totem poles, tiny canoes, pipes, masks, spoons, baskets, copper knives, and bracelets. Tourists to Alaska during this time were fairly wealthy because only the prosperous could afford the journey to Alaska. By 1890, over 5,000 tourists steamed north along the Inside Passage. These travelers published hundreds of accounts of their excursions, which were eagerly consumed by armchair travelers. The enthusiasm of their accounts paved the way for the gold rush. In the following decades, multiple steamship lines carried visitors, prospectors, and other interested persons to the region. Of these, the Alaska Steamship Company created the largest legacy in the area, carrying people and goods to the Upper Lynn Canal from 1894 to 1971. And this picture is from 1914 to 1927, and it's a steamship Spokane on the Lynn Canal for the Alaska Pacific Coast Steamship Company, and it was traveling what was called the Totem Pole route. Today, tourists are still drawn to our valley by our majestic landscape and cultural history. Although we will not see them this year, modern cruise ship passengers dock at the same site as the old Fort Seward military dock. So this is our modern cruise ship dock with the fort picture behind and our mountains. And this is a picture of our modern dock. This is a historic picture of the steamship docks. And this is our modern dock for the cruise ships, very large cruise ships. And underneath it are the pilings, the remnants of the pilings for the original dock that was used there. So on the left, this image is from 1934, and on the right, this image was taken just recently by one of our staff, and it's the cruise ship dock at low tide, and you can see those pilings. It's perhaps fitting that the fort is named after William H. Seward, Secretary of State and first tourist to the Chilkat Valley and to Haines. Now we're going to look at some memorabilia from the collection, early tourist memorabilia. The first item is a steamship key from the Alaska Pacific Steamship Company. And you can see it was a barrel vault key that would turn tumblers. Next we have a passenger ID check which says not good for passage from 1924, and a postcard from 1929. So a little bit romantic, showing a woman with a baby and people with a canoe waving to the big ship. We have some other memorabilia. This is a 1931 travel brochure for the 1931 season, and a My Alaska Cruise travel journal where you could write about your adventures while you're taking your cruise. Tourist market art and memorabilia here. First of all, we have a booklet, and this is coming from our exhibit on tourism. This booklet is published by the Alaska Steamship Company to help passengers understand basketry because they were purchasing it while they were on their trip. The cigarette case is made of spruce root decorated with the teeth of a killer whale in black, red, and brown. And it has some open weaves of some open weaving, but this one really has quite a bit of open weaving, this basket, which is the decoration is called Shaman's Hat and Eye Hole design, and it has Alaska woven in through the center of it. And that's quite common with the tourist goods, that they would say Alaska somewhere on them. Also, this is a picture of some of the miniature totem poles that were tourist items. They are of better and less quality, but we do have a variety, and we have one of the best collections of miniature totem poles held in a museum. This is a 1920 photo of the SS Seattle at Fort Seward Dock. And this is the SS Spokane at dock in 1920. These are steamship passengers in the early 1930s, taken from the Lucien D. Bogan photo album. Bogan was an officer at Fort Seward, Chilkoot, which was known as Chilkoot Barracks at that time. Thank you for listening. Educational resources are available on our website, sheldonmuseum.org/special-events. And I wanted to remind you that we have done a soft reopening as of yesterday, and you can make an appointment to come and see the Alaska Suffrage Star, which is a series of banners about the history of the vote in Alaska and women in the vote, women got the vote in 1913 in Alaska. It's a very interesting exhibit. It does highlight some women and can tell nice stories about them and how they helped the suffrage cause. Next week we'll be doing a history tidbit again at this time at noon on Wednesday, and we'll be talking about the native band, the native band that played at all the parties and marched. So next week, please join me again at noon to listen to a talk about the Haines Native Band. Thank you. Bye.